Time is 5 o'clock. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 2023 meeting of the Omaha Public Power District Board of Directors. Thank you all for joining us in person at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center and remotely via WebEx. I hope you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy. With me in person today are my fellow board members, Amanda Bogner, Mike Kavanaugh, Matt Core, Sarah Howard, Janice Smolhoff, Craig Moody, and Mary Spurgeon. We also have President and CEO Javier Fernandez, our General Counsel Steve Bruckner with the Fraser Stryker Law Firm, and members of our board meeting support staff. OPBD's executive leadership team and subject matter experts are also participating in today's meeting in person and via WebEx. Additionally, we currently have 23 members of the public. I'm sorry, I always do that. We have some members of the public, let's say about 10, in person, and we have 23 people attending online via WebEx, consisting of OPBD employees and members of the public. As a reminder to board members, executive leadership team, and OPBD staff, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise and keep your cell phones off and muted. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You are in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. If you are disconnected from the WebEx conference, we ask that you rejoin in the same manner as when you originally joined. I will now ask a member of OPBD's physical security team to provide the safety briefing for our location and for Javier Fernandez to provide other safety reminders.
Good evening. OPD fosters a strong safety culture. I'll be talking about the physical safety side of the house. Located in our room, we have an AED off to my left, fire suppression off to my right. If we have to evacuate the room, the stairwell is located on either side of the room. Go down the stairs and out of the building. Should we have any need to relocate for severe weather, the sheriffs will take us down to the lower level of the garage. In the event of any type of active shooter, obviously the deputies here will help us out. If you're not feeling well, please let somebody know, and we will get you the help. And we do have additional first aid supplies with us. As always, the biggest reason for people to take trips to the ER these days is slip, trips, and falls. So please keep your eyes on the path, use the handrail on the stairs, all the basic stuff, so that you can remain safe and have a good day. Now, the psychological briefing from the president. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Randy. On the right side of your screen, we have the psychological safety piece, which is just as important as physical safety. What we do is complicated, it's complex, it could be dangerous, and we need to make sure that we have a culture of psychological safety where people feel free to raise their voice, raise their hand when something doesn't feel right, when something is not right. Let's have an opportunity to discuss. As I mentioned on Tuesday, healthy conflict is one of the 5 pillars of psychological safety. It is important for us to learn how to have conflict that is healthy, where we can have debate, differing opinions, and we can come to the table in a respectful manner where we can still have conflict, and at the end of the day, resolve that conflict in a healthy way and move on with even stronger relationships. That's something that we foster at OPBD during meetings and in every aspect of the work we do on a daily basis. Next slide. I mentioned this on Tuesday, situational awareness and preventing falls. I combine those two. On the first one, situational awareness, we need to be fully aware of your environment when we, right before we enter into a potentially hazardous situation. How can we adjust to any changes or threats is key to maintaining our safety. And this is important to do that while you're still in control. And I say that I mentioned the example of when you're climbing up a ladder, you're still in control to grab onto the ladder, to have a helmet, to have harnesses, to have protective devices. There comes a time, there's a point in time when you lose control. Once you begin falling, you have zero control of the outcome. Then you leave it up to luck. And so that's the situational awareness is very, very important. Know when you have control of the outcome and do something about it, so that you can help with preventing falls, and if you have falls, that you're well equipped to react to those falls. The last one, a topic that I've been mentioning in the past couple of months, as the weather turns a little bit nicer and we're doing work, those of us who do work outside all the time, are part of our daily job, or those of us who start doing yard work, it's very, very important for us to increase our awareness for good warm-ups, good ergonomic positions to prevent sprain or strain, which typically increase during the season. And with that, that concludes my safety briefing.
Great, thanks very much. Now let's run through our guidelines for the conduct of the meeting. This regular board meeting will follow the agenda made available to the public on oppd.com. This meeting is being conducted in person with WebEx conferencing and is being recorded. Our board meetings have public comment periods on the agenda. Comments made by all parties during the meeting are part of the official public record. After the introduction of action items, board members will ask clarifying questions, and then I will ask for public comment. After public comment, the board will conduct its discussion of the matter and then vote. Also, before we adjourn, there will be an opportunity to comment on other matters of district business. We will take comments in the room first and then via WebEx. For in-person attendees, if you wish to make a comment, please line up behind the microphone in the center. Please state your name, address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we will use the timer located in the room. Ms. Lane will signal when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is up. If you have written materials, please deliver them to the OPPD representative in the room. Next, we will review 2 options for the WebEx attendees to notify us. Option 1, which is being displayed now, involves sending the meeting technology host a message using the chat feature, simply stating that you wish to speak.
Thank you, Chair Williams. For those of you who have joined us using a computer or WebEx mobile app, you will find a button in your WebEx interface to open the chat panel. Once opened, you may send your message to the meeting technology host. Requests to provide comments will be relayed to Chair Williams for recognition during the public comments section.
Option 2, which is being displayed now, involves the hand raise feature.
WebEx allows attendees to virtually raise their hand. You may use this feature to indicate to OPPD that you wish to be recognized to provide comments. The hand raise button can be found in the lower control bar of WebEx. After you've provided your comments, please press the raise hand button again to virtually lower your hand. And for those of you who have joined the meeting using only a telephone, WebEx has a hand raise feature that is activated by pressing *3 to raise and lower your hand. When we see your hand raised, we will acknowledge you by referencing a portion of your phone number. For example, caller with the phone number beginning in 402-123. If you wish to provide comments when recognized, please wait a brief moment to be unmuted and begin speaking. At this time, if you would like to try using the hand raise feature, please do so as a test.
I'll allow plenty of time at each opportunity for public comment for members of the public to provide notification via WebEx. When I call on a member of the public to speak, our meeting technology host will unmute your microphone. Before commencing your comments, I suggest you first affirm that we can hear you. Please state your name and address and state the name of any organization or person you are representing. Organizations should choose 1 representative to speak on their behalf. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending at the discretion of the board. To assist you, we will display a timer on the WebEx screen to ensure each member of the public receives a consistent amount of time. Ms. Lane will signal you when you have 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. For all attendees, please direct your comments to me. I will either respond to you directly or defer response to another member of the board or an officer of the district. The board values and welcomes civil, respectful, clear, concise communication from the public. During public comments, speakers should refrain from repetitious, profane, or irrelevant comments. Speakers shall refrain from polling the board, as such vote is not on the agenda and is prohibited by law. If you have written materials, please email them to corporatesecretary@oppd.com, and they will be received on our behalf. For those at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center, please hand your materials to Ms. Lane. In summary, we will take in-room comments first, then WebEx comments, and then have a last call. Ms. Lane, will you please take the roll call?
Director Williams,
Yes.
Director Bogner,
Here.
Director Kavanaugh,
Here.
Director Core,
Here.
Director Howard,
Here.
Director Malhoff,
Here.
Director Moody,
Here.
Director Spurgeon.
Here.
Notice of the time and place of this meeting was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald, OPPD outlets newsletter, oppd.com, and social media, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on May 12, 2023. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection on oppd.com and in this meeting room. Our board consent agenda items are as follows. Item 6, approval of the April 2023 meeting minutes and the May 18, 2023 agenda. Item 7, standing committee charters revisions and district's bylaws and board policies Policies updates, Resolution number 6567. Item number 8, SD3, Access to Credit Markets Monitoring Report, Resolution number 6568. Item 9, NO5, Air Preheater Basket and Seal Replacement, Materials Contract Award, Resolution number 6569. Item 10, NC1, Air Preheater Basket and Seal Replacement, Materials Contract Award, Resolution number 6570. NO4, Air Preheater Basket and Seal Replacement, Labor Contract Award, Resolution number 6571. Item 12, Acquisition of Land Rights for Energy Production Infrastructure Project associated with and in proximity to the Nebraska City Station, Resolution number 6572.
There are no corrections, changes, or additions to the consent agenda items. I need a motion and a second to approve these items.
So move.
Second.
We discussed these action items in the all-committee meeting on Tuesday, May 16th. If any members of the public in the room have comments on the consent agenda items, if you'd like to make a comment, please come to the podium. I do not see anyone in the room. Do members of the public on WebEx have a comment? Please send a chat to the meeting host or use the hand raise feature in WebEx. Telephone users can press *3 to raise their hand. No comments online. Ms. Lane, please call the roll.
Director Williams,
Yes.
Director Bogner,
Yes.
Director Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Director Core,
Yes.
Director Howard,
Yes.
Director Mulhoff,
Yes.
Director Moody,
Yes.
Director Spurgeon.
Yes.
Great. Next on the agenda is the other items, and first there is the President's report. President Fernandez.
Thank you, Chair Williams. As it is my tradition, we begin the President's report for the month of April, which concluded a few weeks ago, with a report on baseload generation. This one it's interesting. Nebraska City Unit 1, capacity factor of 37%. Nebraska City Unit 2 entered into a longer planned outage around April 8th. So that's why you see such a low capacity factor, because it only ran the first week of April. And then it has been offline as we do our traditional, every 2 years, we do a longer outage on these units. North Omaha 4 and 5 had capacity factors of 50% and 37.8%. One of the reasons why you see those lower capacity factors, it's no surprise and no coincidence. We plan these accordingly. These are the windy months of the year. The shoulder months of the year, we have April and May, when the wind blows really strong here in Nebraska. And so we've been able to offer these units online, but they haven't ran as high as they typically run in other times of the year. That's part of the beauty of having a diverse portfolio with different technologies that complement each other during different times of the year. So that explains the lower capacity factors of our baseload generation for the month of April. Moving on to balancing generation, a little bit of more contrasting picture here. We did have a little bit higher capacity factors on our Cass County, North Omaha Unit 3, Sarpy County stations. Our Jones Street stations ran a little bit. All of these are balancing generation. These are generators that can come online relatively quickly. Most of them are powered by natural gas, and they help us balance the generation when we have intermittent power coming mostly from our wind resources, combined with our baseload generation. We expect our balancing generation to be there, ready to serve, and that's exactly what these did. North Omaha Units 1 and 2 had a capacity factor of 0. We still had, in the month of April, most of the month of April, we did not have gas available to that station, and that's why you see those capacity factors at 0. Moving on to the third part, the third chapter of this story, which is the next slide. Renewables. So the wind blew really hard during April. You can see the wind capacity factor of 44.3%. Really interesting that the capacity factor for wind in the month of April was higher than the capacity factor of 2 of our baseload generators. Once again, it's something that we do these by design, and we take advantage of winter conditions whenever we have them. And happy to report that renewable energy contributed 37.3% of OPPD's retail energy sales for the month of April. Capacity factor for community solar continues to increase as the days get longer, daylight hours get longer, and it was 29.4%. So very important for me to tell this story because we're going to talk a little bit about proposal that we shared with the board on Tuesday for a diverse portfolio of generation and how these different technologies play with each other, and they help us maintain a reliable service to our service territory. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a the part of the presentation when I get to talk about things that are not that great, and that is what happens when our generation, our transmission, our distribution in the country doesn't respond well to weather conditions. Earlier this week, NERC issued an alert titled Cold Weather Preparations for Extreme Weather Events. And the purpose of this is to alert all utilities across the country from coast to coast about things that we need to do to mitigate the risk for upcoming winter weather events. We here in Nebraska, in the Southwest Power Pool, experienced our own fair share of a winter weather event in February of 2021. And we've been close a few times after that with energy emergency alerts issued by SPP. What NERC did was officially issuing this alert saying we need to be ready. We need to have all of our generation ready when we need it the most. In this case, for extreme weather events that happen in the winter. Even though I just reported our capacity factors for the month of April, those capacity factors would have been very different if it had been in the month of January, where we would have seen a lot more baseload generation carrying that load and a lot more balancing stations carrying that load, specifically to address the weather events that NERC is alerting us all to do this. These are not standards. There are no penalties per se for not meeting those, but they are recommendations that all utilities are taking very seriously to make sure that we winterize. That's a term. It's not a technical term, but we're winterizing our portfolio of generation, make sure that we have the right tools, the right sources of energy to respond when needed. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to do a very, very brief high-level overview. We spent a lot of time on Tuesday at our all committees meeting talking about these, and we had members of staff presenting the proposal. What happens here is we are blessed with growth. Nebraska is open for business, and we see these on a daily basis by the number of new meters that we're serving, new residential meters that we're serving. I believe this past year we exceeded 5,000. I think it was close to 6,000 new residential meters this past year. People are moving to the state. People are building homes. Businesses are expanding. New businesses are moving into the state. And when I say businesses, they're small, medium, and very large industrial businesses that want to move into the state. This means we are expecting our community to increase their electric system peak demand. This is the summer peak demand, approximately 1,050 megawatts by 2032. For comparison, our current peak load is about 2,500. So adding an additional 1,000 megawatts of peak load in less than 10 years is, I'm going to call it gigantic, another technical term. We're experiencing historic growth. Just a few years ago, less than 5 years ago, our annual growth was about 4 megawatts per year. Today, we're experiencing over 100 megawatts per year of additional demand for electricity or load. Again, economic development, community growth, electrification. One way I have to share this with members of the public is you have to look at your own house, at your own life. How are you living your life? We used to call this the electrification of the economy. I've also heard it described as the digitization of the economy. Virtually everything we do on a daily basis requires data. How you got here, how you're taking notes in school, how we're healing in hospitals, how we're navigating on GPS. How we're storing data on the cloud. Well, those clouds are really not clouds, they're servers somewhere in a data center. And so all of that is really coming to us in the form of additional power generation or demand for electricity that we need to serve. In addition to that, and really tied to the previous slide on the NERC alerts, this is nothing new to us. We've known that there's a need for us to increase the margin, reserve margin. The Southwest Power Pool last year increased the planned reserve margin. The planned reserve margin is the amount of generation that you need to have available that is above and beyond your peak. It used to be 12%. We used to have to demonstrate that we had at least 12% more generation capability than our summer peak. That 12% turned into 15% overnight after a lot of debate and discussion with experts in the Southwest Power Pool. And so today we are facing a 15% planned reserve margin. We expect this to continue to increase. There are a lot more energy emergency alerts and NERC alerts telling us we need to increase our margins. Part of this, you can call this it's climate change adaptation. We are seeing a lot of 500-year floods happening to us pretty much on a yearly basis. So how do we adapt and strengthen the grid is very closely tied to the increase in planning reserve margin. We currently, in the Southwest Power Pool, we don't have separate planned reserve margins for different seasons like other RTOs or regional transmission organizations do have. But we believe that this is coming our way. We are planning for the Southwest Power Pool at some point to have a separate requirement for winter planned reserve margin. So that's important for us to know, to make sure that at all times, both summer peak and winter peak, we have enough reserve margin to meet our requirements and really shore up reliability in our region. So we need a lot more generation. You can see the graph in front of you shows our existing resources depicted by the gray line or the gray area. We have a dark orange area with a committed power with purpose resources we have right now. We are busy building them. We have Turtle Creek Station, which is 450 megawatts of new natural gas generation in Sarpy County, 150 megawatts approximately of reciprocating engines in Standing Bear Lake Station here in Douglas County, plus an 81 megawatt utility scale solar project we have going on in Saunders County. We call that Platteview Solar. Those are depicted there in the dark orange area. We also have more. We have an additional 519 megawatts of additional solar, utility scale solar that we need to pursue. We have to pursue. It's not a nice to have. It is a must have. As you can see here, our load is growing. If we don't have those resources when we need them the most, especially in the summer months, when the sun is shining really hard and we have a lot of solar generation, we're going to be in trouble. We need those resources desperately. All of us, Nebraskans, we need those resources, all different technologies with a diverse portfolio of resources. Now, even if we complete all of our planned power with purpose and committed power with purpose projects, you can see there's still a white area, a gap that we need to solve. And that is what we have on the next slide. We've been briefing our board in closed session and the public in open session many times. We've been sharing with the board lots of information that is confidential in nature with prices and customers, names of customers and who they are and things that we can't necessarily share in public, but trying to show our board the need that we have. And I don't take this lightly. This is huge. The proposal that will be coming to the board in June calls for a range of anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 megawatts of renewables, either solar or wind generation. It calls for up to 125 megawatts of energy storage, long-term energy storage of 4-hour equivalent batteries. It also calls for a range between 600 and 950 megawatts of dual fuel combustion turbines, very similar to the ones that we're building today in Standing Bear Lake Station and Turtle Creek Station. We have not selected the specific technology, but it'll be very similar to that. It also calls for over 32 megawatts of demand response. And we will continue to pursue demand response as fast and as aggressively as we possibly can. So I think 32 megawatts is the floor. And I have already challenged my team to be very aggressive and try to get more demand response. That's imperative. And it also looks into adding fuel oil capability, having dual sources of fuel on some of our existing facilities. That's approximately 320 megawatts of dual fuel capability, specifically to respond to winter conditions when we need it the most. It is very important for me to share that we've talked to the board, and part of the resolution is going to be that none of these added fuel oil capability will be in our North Omaha station. The only changes that we're proposing in our North Omaha station, we've already talked about these in a lot of detail, which is retiring units 1, 2, and 3. We will refuel units 4 and 5 around the 2025-2026 timeframe from coal to natural gas. And the only change that we're proposing with this proposal is to add battery storage. That storage that I just talked about the North Omaha station is a likely site where we still have to do some studies and analysis, but that would be the only change that we would propose for that station. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because our board of directors have an obligation to serve, period. Customers call and knock on our door and they want service. We have an obligation to serve. And our board knows these, and they've been very supportive of all types of growth. We don't have enough generation today to serve all the requirements that we have from customers who want to move in and begin service really, really quickly. In fact, we have to now talk to those large customers and tell them, yes, we can serve you. Yes, we are open for business, but give us a little bit of time. Let's work on the timing because we can't serve some of these customers as fast as they want us to serve. As we propose this additional portfolio for more generation, once again, it's for the growth we're experiencing, but it's also very important to remember that this is also to address the increase on planned reserve margin that is happening across the RTO. So even if we didn't have the growth that we're experiencing, all of us, every single one of our customers today will benefit from this additional generation because we need to increase our planned reserve margin to make our system stronger and more reliable. A question I get is, well, how will our customers see the benefit of this additional planned reserve margin? And my answer is, I hope they never see that, because really what we're trying to do here is avoid a massive system blackout, right? So we never want to be in a position where we're comparing that to not having one. So it's one where our system, our engineers, our operators can give us really good data to show the probability of us having a system-wide blackout will decrease by means of having additional planned reserve margin and additional spinning reserves and other types of technology on call for us never to get close to a system-wide blackout. By the way, what we had in February of 2021 was not a system-wide blackout. Those were planned outages that lasted 45 minutes at a time, and that was precisely to prevent a system-wide collapse that could last days for us to recover. So hard for me to explain to a customer, how are you going to notice the difference? I hope you never notice the difference, but please know that what we're doing here is improving our chances, decreasing the probability of us ever having to deal with a system-wide outage. Now, this is going to be complicated. Basically, what we're doing here between the work that we have going on right now with Power with Purpose and these additional resources that we're going to ask the board to consider for approval next month, we're nearly going to double the current generation capability that Oppd has. It's taken us almost 8 decades to build what we have today. And I'm going to ask the amazing men and women at Oppd to build that much generation in 1 decade. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be fast. But we need to do this to really show up for Nebraska. Our state is growing. economically, it's thriving. We need to make sure that we continue to be the engine, the economic engine that powers this amazing state of ours, all the way from the Panhandle to the Missouri River, rural and urban alike. We are growing like we've never grown before. Now, we're doing this keeping many things in mind. As you can see here on the bullet points, keeping rates low. We talked on Thursday, our CFO, Bishop, talked about how much of these investments are going to cost, not only in capital investments, but operational expenses. And we estimate that this is going to have an upward pressure on rates between 2.5% and 3% per year from 2027 to 2030. It's important, and it's important for me to share that with the board and for the board to understand these investments are not free. Now, all of these investments will generate a lot of revenue. There's a lot of revenue coming from all of this growth, but not all of that revenue will cover all the additional expenses. And that's, again, the planned reserve margin that we're increasing is, in my mind, in a very simplistic way, is justifying that additional cost that we all are going to bear. We need to keep access to credit markets, keep our liquidity strong, our debt to capitalization ratio strong, our credit rating strong, and we believe that we should be able to do that very well. When we are incurring in additional debt, that is not necessarily a bad thing. Rating agencies and investors know that. If you're incurring an additional debt because you're growing, because demand for your product is growing, that's not a bad story. And so, and we believe that we should be able to maintain that access to credit markets. Number 4, very important, this is to ensure reliability. Our Chief Operating Officer, Troy Vai, he loses sleep every now and then, knowing that we get closer to not having enough resources. And this is really adding to our portfolio, not only more megawatts, but a lot more varied megawatts. Varied in terms of different technology, different location, more resilient, that in a way that we can react and have power coming from different parts of the state to serve our customer owners. It should achieve high customer satisfaction. I already talked about, we're not going to demonstrate this by having system-wide blackouts, but it will improve the reliability of the system. Very important for us and for the board, it's SD7. We continue to be committed to having a net zero carbon utility by 2050. These investments as a whole continue to move us towards having a net zero carbon utility by 2050. In fact, these results are very much in line with the results that our teams projected when we conducted our Pathways to Decarbonization study. This is one of those pathways, and it's coming to being real for us. Now, we will have more combustion turbines on the fleet, but we'll have significantly more renewables. In fact, from a modeling perspective, and this is something that our Vice President of Sustainability and Environmental Affairs mentioned on Tuesday, from a modeling perspective, again, this is just a model, we're expecting that this new portfolio, the energy coming out of this portfolio, 90% of that energy will be renewable. Why not 100? Because we still have winters that we need to take care of. Because batteries, solar, and wind are fantastic resources, but we still need to have dispatchable generation for those dark, cold morning and evenings in the winter when we've been experiencing a growth in our winter peak. And then the last bullet is we're using an integrated system planning approach. We're not just looking at this from a generation perspective, but we are incredibly focused on transmission and distribution. And so making sure that we have not only the number of megawatts, but that we have the voltage support in the right places, injecting energy and voltage in the right places in our system to make sure that at all times we have a healthy system from all, looking at it from all perspectives, from a generation and the transmission perspective. And at the bottom of the page, you can see what I mentioned earlier about the only changes we're planning for our North Omaha station, which is the potential addition of battery storage. And these numbers that you see here, they are all incremental to the 450 megawatts that we are building on Turtle Creek Station, 150 megawatts that we're building on Standing Bear Lake Station, and 81 megawatts of flat view solar in here. So the remaining 519 megawatts of solar that the board authorized us to pursue in 2019, those are folded in, if you will, into this new proposal. It's the additional generation that we need to continue to pursue. That's probably one of the longest slides I've ever presented on a president's report, but it's important, very important, and I want to make sure that I gave the public a Reader's Digest. If you want to learn more about these, you can go back and watch our committee meeting and actually all committees meeting that we've been having in the past few months. We've been building up to this moment. Let's go to the next, please. Next slide. I'm going to switch topics here, and I'm going to celebrate that the Arbor Day Foundation has named OPPD a Treeline USA utility for the 23rd year. Treeline USA recognizes public and private utilities for pursuing best practices that protect and cultivate America's urban tree canopy. Just a good opportunity for me to remind you that OPPD has an arboretum. Very proud of our arboretum. We take good care of it and we maintain it. It is located on 108th and Blondo streets in Omaha, and if you haven't been there recently, you should. It's beautiful. We've been doing a lot of really good work in there, and the weather is still nice for you to enjoy a nice evening or morning walking in the arboretum. It is open from dawn until dusk. Next slide, please. Habitat for Humanity Omaha and OPPD partner doing our Rock the Block at Fort Calhoun. The city of Fort Calhoun, on Saturday, April 29th, we had about 100 volunteers, most of whom were OPPD employees, family, and friends, who volunteered to work on 13 homes, including one historic property, a gazebo, and the Washington County Historical Society Museum in Fort Calhoun. Volunteers painted, sanded, cleaned gutters, did a lot of work for the community. This is one of our most popular events. It usually fills up really quick, and we usually have to turn volunteers away because we don't have enough space for them. Next slide, please. Okay, our Cinco de Mayo parade. Cinco de Mayo was done on Mayo 13, so not the 5th. And that was, we had a big event here in town with the Berkshire annual meeting, so they didn't want to with that same event. So the week later, on May 13th, members of the Latino Society of OPPD, employees and their families participated in the Cinco de Mayo parade in South Omaha. Walkers followed the veterans' wrapped OPPD truck, distributing candy and carrying banners, reinforcing our core value of honoring all the communities we serve. Next slide, please. This is another really proud moment for us. The Pinnacle Awards are a yearly showcase of the area's outstanding marketing talent and the successful campaigns that are the result. Entries include categories and nominees from across the marketing spectrum, from students to large businesses. Our own OPPD product development and marketing team is expecting to submit multiple campaigns for the 2024 Pinnacle Awards for various campaigns that will be taking place throughout the remainder of 2023. And you can see here the team where we were recognized for the campaigns for our energy assistance program that collected a total of $60,130, representing a 103% increase in donations this year. And finally, the last slide. In a few weeks, or a week from Monday, we will be celebrating Memorial Day, which at OPPD we also celebrate the Day of Remembrance. We've had 18 men who have died in the line of duty at OPPD. And I mentioned this a few board meetings ago. I never want to add a 19th name to that list. Kevin McCormick knows that, and we've been incredibly focused on safety. But this is important. Safety continue and will continue to be my number one priority and OPPD's number one priority. One of the things that we do is to remember those who we've lost as a tribute to them, to their families, and as a reminder to all of our employees of the work that we do and how dangerous it could be. Argyle Harshberger died on September 23rd, 1953, from injuries sustained from a fall while working on a pole near 68th and Mercy Street in Omaha. He was only 33 years old and had been with OPPD for 7 years at the time of his death. During World War II, while stationed as a cook on board the USS Nevada, Mr. Harshberger was injured when the ship was damaged by enemy gunfire and suffered a direct hit by a kamikaze plane off the coast of Okinawa. Proud veteran, proud OPPD employee who was survived by his wife, Pat, his son Daniel, and twins Bradley and Cindy. And that, Mr. Chair, concludes my President's report.
Great, thanks very much. Next on the agenda is an opportunity for public comment on items of district business. We'll start with comments in the room.
David Bagley, 4611 South 96th Street. I'll have more comments about this $2 billion spending plan later, but I want to tell the board, for all these renewables, you're going to have to get approval from the different counties. That's not a sure thing by any means. So it's very risky, and you're trying to draw to inside straight. If you don't get approvals, your whole plan blows up. So it may not surprise you that I am quite reviled by liberals on social media. And somebody by the name of Janie Utah, who's apparently a graduate of the University of Nebraska Law School, says I show up every month to rant about the negative effects of solar power, low COVID, how COVID was caused by 5G, things of that nature. Well, if you've been listening to me over these many months, you will know that I've exclusively focused on the high cost and unreliability of solar and wind, because that's what's going to happen. So as a lawyer, I learned the concept of cruel neutrality. And that phrase was given to me by a friend of mine who's a law professor at the University of Wisconsin. What that means is you may have biases, passions, prejudices for whatever, but you got to look at the facts fair. And the facts are this renewable business is going to cost a fortune. And as John Kenneth Galbraith said, when the facts change, I change my opinion. What do you do, sir? So again, I'll focus on another legal concept, duty. SD2, SD4, you have a duty as directors to provide reliable and inexpensive power. And I've told you numerous times, and Isaac Orr at the Center for the American Experiment has proven that you're going to end up tripling rates and cause blackouts. So the last thing here is a concept from finance called hedging. Your CEOs, I'm sure, familiar with that. I'm sure you hedge your coal and natural gas prices. So here's your hedge. Now, you may know Steve Bruckner and I were classmates at Creighton University, and we've been friends for many years, and I have a high degree of respect for Steve, both personally and professionally. We didn't talk about my little thing here today, but here's the thing. The EPA on May 8th issued some new proposed
30
regs,
seconds.
and your new natural gas plant, you're going to have to supply carbon capture. You're going to have to pay millions more. And so to get to the heart of the matter here, well, carbon capture doesn't work. But I submit that you should hire the Fraser Stryker law firm to sue the EPA and put to them two issues. They don't have the authority under the Major Questions Doctrine to fundamentally change the power here in the United States. And Massachusetts versus EPA was wrongly decided. And carbon dioxide is not a pollutant within the meaning of the Clean Air Act. So I'll just wrap up. If you pay Fraser Stryker $2 million, it'd be money well spent. That's your hedge. Thank you.
There are other comments in the room.
Kitty garden, I like. Thanks to show, it's fun. Laverne Tran, 114th and Maple Street. So things that were left out of all of this conversations, and I'm just getting into it. There are currently 0.3 gigawatts of electrolyzers powered by renewable energy installed today, with a projected 40 gigawatts to be commissioned by 2030, according to the Blueburn Hydrogen Production Database. This project pipeline pales in the comparison of the 850 gigawatts of electrolyzers needed by 2030 for hydrogen to play its part in a net zero world. There's opportunity to integrate curtailed power supplemented with complementary on-site renewable capacity to increase the stability of electricity input. Costs can be saved in reducing the magnitude of new renewables built, and the grid can be stabilized to a consistent off-taker of excess electricity. Debates over green hydrogen relevance in a clean energy future are no longer meaningful. We know that it is needed. Now is the time to accelerate green hydrogen's path towards being cost competitive sooner than later. This, you talked about in all of your reports that it was too expensive. Well, the Senate has authorized $9.5 billion for clean hydrogen research, development, demonstration projects, and that thing. The governor agrees with me. He's doing the Clean Energy Hub with 2 other states. The German the Chancellor of Germany at the World Economic Forum says, our goal is nothing less than an electrolysis boom. And as quantities increase and hydrogen power industrial sector will emerge, that preserves the climate and is independent of volatile prices of fossil fuels. Here's a Bill Gates report about the other hydropower. Maybe you'll listen to him. A high-performance capillary-fed electrolysis cell promises more competitive renewable hydrogen, so there's been huge advances. Now, this you also said in your report that it was not mature enough. Well, with more than 3,500 reliable, cost-effective electrolyzers installed around the globe, Neil Hydrogen, since our founding in 1927, sustained R&D efforts have contributed to continual improvement of electrolyzer technology, setting the benchmark in the market. Our electrolysis technology today is widely respected for its robustness, reliability, and energy efficiency. 1927. I don't know how mature you got to be to get your technology going. Then you guys also say you need natural gas, you need all this stuff. Well, a study led by Stanford University professor Mark Jacobson has demonstrated that the U.S. energy system running on wind, water, and solar, coupled with storage, not only avoids blackouts, but lowers energy requirements, consumer costs, while creating millions of jobs and including health. I've also included the Global Hydrogen Review, and it's such a technical, weird thing that you could just put a solar panel of this, run it through a little water, boom, you got hydrogen, oxygen, you can run my little car. So it's really not very expensive if they're putting it on children's science toys. So please, I brought this to you, hoping that by next month, you'll be read up on it. I hope you take this advantage to actually inform yourselves on the hydrogen infrastructure. See, 30 seconds, bro. Told you.
Are there additional comments in the room? I do not see any. Do we have comments online?
David Corbin.
You hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good, thank you. David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street, on behalf of the Nebraska Chapter Sierra Club. I listened to the committee meeting, and the points that I took away, I felt that energy efficiency was just glossed over, and there's a difference between growth and smart growth. As a matter of fact, in public health and medicine, we say that uncontrolled growth is called cancer. We have to be careful about how and when growth takes place. I realize that all of that might not be in the purview of OPPD, but energy efficiency of new projects is in the purview of OPPD. OPPD still hasn't met the past demand side management goals, and building codes for the city of Omaha, OPPD was not at the city council meeting when they failed to pass the total package of energy efficient codes. I hope that they will raise that issue again, since it's also covered with the Inflation Reduction Act. OPPD is on record supporting LB 237 on weatherization, but the bigger, much bigger IRA funding should be strongly advocated by OPPD. It would be good to match the money that OPPD is now spending on all your projects and advertising to help North Omaha, considering that you're now burning coal for an additional 3 years. So you could also work with the IRA and EPA funding on that as well. It's hard to fathom how OPPD is going to reach their goals by adding more fossil fuels, but I'll wait and see how that works out. It would be good if OPPD would support the establishment of a green bank, since OPPD has yet to create on-bill financing for energy efficiency and solar energy. That would be very helpful. I'll just end with a couple of things that happened recently. I had a smart thermostat installed, and the company, which is a large HVAC company, didn't know about your rebate program. And by the way, the cost to hook up to the Wi-Fi is at least double your $75 rebate. You may wish to check into this and make sure that the word about rebates is getting to the right people and how much it costs to add that to Wi-Fi. And finally, I just want to say I added solar panels to a rental house that I
30 seconds.
have, and for the first time, just as we predicted some time ago, when you raise the fixed rate to $30, the energy use for that house is less than the fixed rate. So that's another reason for why we considered it unfair for people who have clean energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have other comments online?
Liz Beasy.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Liz VZ, 912 North 49th Street, Omaha, 68132. So I think allowing only 1 month for public engagement for such a huge investment is really ridiculous. It shows a complete lack of attention to past board and public comments on increasing public engagement. I think staff proposing 1 month demonstrates that they see no real opportunity for engagement. They've already decided this is what's going to happen. There's no way to change that. I think that is not public power. This is $2 billion of public investments. We should have multiple months for the public to engage around this proposal and consider what are the other options, what are costs and benefits, how do they compare. Regulated utilities in other states would have to go through multi-year long processes, allowing public and community stakeholders multiple opportunities to comment, to intervene before any kind of proposal like this could be approved. Also connecting to OPPD's Pathways to Decarbonization report, which states all net zero pathways require a cessation of coal generation and reduced fossil generation. So I don't understand how OPPD can build more new fossil generation on top of the 600 megawatts of gas that was just built and still reduce fossil generation and reduce greenhouse gas emissions and align with that report. The report also has a key finding that a mix of new low carbon resources, including renewable energy, energy storage, and community-wide energy efficiency will be required. So we should be heavily investing in efficiency and demand response before considering new generation. Where are those programs? Brattle Group, who did the study supporting OPPD's raised fixed fees, just published a study on virtual power plants, which are aggregations of customer-owned resources like electric vehicles, energy storage, rooftop solar, smart thermostats, and appliances, and how these aggregations of customer resources can help us meet resource adequacy needs at a much lower cost and with more societal benefits than building new gas plants. So why are we only seeing 30 megawatts of demand response and no broader plan for a virtual power plant? Also, do the data centers that are leading to the need for additional capacity, which mostly claim to be 100% powered by clean energy, know that they are causing the construction of new fossil generation?
3 seconds.
My final question for the board would be, can you push back this vote to at least September to give the public and stakeholders time to actually engage around this gigantic proposal and dig into some of the questions that I and others have raised? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We have additional comments online.
John Pollock.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
This is John Pollock, 1412 North 35th Street, Omaha, 68131. In the interest of time, I will say that I'm in agreement with the comments of David Corbin and Liz Veazey, and I see a particular need for a large project like this to have an extended public comment period and engagement period. Although I will be submitting some comments within the time slot you've put, I don't think it's adequate. I would also note that with a changing mix of residential to commercial and industrial electrical use, it's time to be thinking about revisiting the rate structure again, and in particular, the fixed fee for residential customers. Switching to the weather, we've just had a cold front come through. There's essentially no more chance for rain right in the Omaha area, but behind the front, there is a thick pall of smoke that was generated by large forest fires in Western Canada. This is a symptom of climate change, but as a result, our local air quality is becoming unhealthy as I speak, with a substantial area of air quality index in the 150 to 200 range. There are even a few places over 200. I would expect these conditions to continue for the next day or two, but eventually this will be diluted and move on. But this is going to be a continuing problem whenever we get normally clean air out of Canada. It's probably going to be going all summer with this situation, because there's no way to put out all those fires. Locally, we're going to be warmer and drier than normal, with the exception of the next couple of days, extending for another week. At that point, we're going to be reloading some moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. So a week to two out, we're entering a rather critical period to see whether we continue this drought or whether we can make things better for
30
ourselves.
seconds.
Yes, thank you. So we are looking at a chance of thunderstorms beginning about a week from now, and the possibility of a good spring rain, but it's by no means guaranteed. Lower chances of severe weather because we're going to have a weak jet stream. That was it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments online?
Ryan Wishart.
Ryan.
49th Street.
Sorry, Ryan, please begin again.
Ryan Wishart, 912 North 49th Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I wanted to comment on what seems to be a unique opportunity for OPPD, given that 2 years ago they conducted analysis that estimated household level energy burdens to engage in public education around the potential opportunities for energy burdened households to take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm unaware of any other entity that has that kind of accurate household level information. I believe in the past, OPD has noted in their energy burden research that customers view them as their #1 source of information for energy. So this is an important need to address these energy burdens in the time that these programs are available, that I'd like to hear more about what the utility is doing. The other thing I would raise is that the social science research
tells us that for the kinds of tax credits and incentives which make up the bulk of these to be effective for low-income households, they need to be paired with more intensive outreach efforts and other forms of funding and resources. So I know OPPD has said that they are looking into on-bill financing, making that deployment rapid and pairing it with the existing incentive structures has the most potential to make an impact in burdened communities such as North Omaha. These sort of efforts could be an important step towards meeting the board resolution goal of mitigating the impacts of the coal extension in North Omaha, for example. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments online? Great. Anyone else in the room? Last call. All right,
Wait,
online.
we have one more online.
Great.
Catherine Finnegan.
Catherine, please check that we can hear you.
3326 South 98th Street, and I am representing Citizens Climate Lobby. And I just, listening to the committee meeting on Tuesday, when we took a look at the data you presented in slide 29, where the environmental impact slide, it shows only the closing of the North Omaha Station coal really seems to bring a substantial decrease. But it's not apparent to us that our emissions are going to continue to decrease at a rate fast enough to meet the 2050 net zero target. And I think at this point, what we would like to see, we don't want to micromanage how you allocate resources. Obviously, we're interested in seeing those resources in renewables. But we would like to see the board set specific interim metrics transparent to the public in how the 2050 net zero target is going to be reached, because we've done a little bit of very rudimentary spreadsheet work and we just can't figure out how you're going to get there. And that is our biggest concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Checking again. Do we have any additional comments online? Great. And I do not see anyone in the room. Do we have any desired response to any of the comments today?
I'll take a moment just quickly. I think that thank you to the public who's interested and attended and listened. Without getting into a lot of detail, because it's really not what I'm ready here. It's really important for us to remind the public that as we presented on Tuesday, the team always looked at our goals for net zero carbon by 2050. It's important for us to remind the public that our goal is to be net, not absolute zero. That's important because it gives us that flexibility to continue to provide reliable service, and we can net some of the emissions that happen later on in 2050. But to one of the callers' point, the graphs that we showed are only through the early 2030s, and most of those emissions will continue to be part of our remaining baseload generation. That still needs to be addressed at some point. We have demonstrated through pathways to decarbonization that any chance that we have of using a different fuel other than coal in our Nebraska City Station will depend on many factors and will only be available to us in the late 2030s to mid 2040s for us to do this transition reliable. And I want to make sure that I'm transparent with the public that station, and I know not everybody's a fan of that station. That station is the crown jewel of our portfolio. It provides the anchor for all the generation and for the reliability that we have. We understand that it emits and it has greenhouse gas emissions. It has a lot of investments that we've made in the past to limit those emissions, and that we will continue to look into that, and that's part of our commitment to the board. And those will be many iterations that will come later on to this board and future boards coming from me and my successors. This is a long play that we all have to keep our focus on having a reliable, affordable, and environmentally sensitive system that never violates all those tenets, especially the reliability piece. Right? If we don't have reliability, we really can't talk about anything else. But we have to move on all those three. The presentation we had on Tuesday showed that if we were to solve not only for environmental attributes, but if we were to solve only for cost, the model produced an inordinate amount more of renewables. The least cost solution that we had in our portfolio was loaded with even more renewables than we're presenting here. When we added the additional layer of, hey, we also need local resource adequacy, local reliability to make sure that we have enough power when we need it, that's when we started adding, and we see an increase of natural gas generation and batteries and some other things that you saw on the proposal. But that's important for me to dispel the myth that renewables are expensive. Based on our modeling, they are the lowest cost generation that we have. But we cannot rely exclusively on a renewable only portfolio in order for us to meet our planned reserve margin requirements and do the right thing and keeping the lights on for the public. I am very proud that OPPD continues to be a partner with other utilities and with the state. We are part of the green hydrogen, the hydrogen hub application that was submitted to the federal government. We are definitely looking into that, and hydrogen electrolysis is a promising technology. It's been around for a long time. It has some limitations in cost and transmission and storage, but it is something that we are certainly looking into that. And we are seeing quite a bit of that activity of manufacturing and electrolysis of hydrogen on the eastern part of our state. Some of our sister utilities on that side of the state, they're seeing some of that demand. So we're very, very much focused and love to see more green hydrogen being developed at an affordable and way that meets our requirements. We talked about energy efficiency. Very good comments on energy efficiency. I really appreciate those. We didn't focus too much on those on energy efficiency on our presentation because that's really the way we look at it is a load reductor. It's a load reduction mechanism we have that is helping us maintain our growth low. But again, to some of our stakeholders who spoke today, I think great ideas on how can we make these programs more available, our customers more knowledgeable about the different programs we have. I think that's a great idea and something that I took note of. Building codes, we have great opportunities. We have engaged with the city of Omaha and others on influencing policy. Perhaps you haven't seen us directly, but we're working behind the scenes. Part of what we did through the Urban Core Committee and some recommendations that we proposed to the city of Omaha included a lot of measures for energy efficiency. So we are working on that. It's not by any means complete and something that we will continue to work on. The last thing I would like to comment on, and this is important, regarding the timing, I forgot to mention something that Vice President Lisa Olson mentioned on Tuesday and something that we've been mentioning to the board. These may seem like a short period of time for us to, we're presenting this proposal and we're asking the board for approval in June. We're asking the board for approval in June because we need that approval now. That approval will send the teams to start issuing RFPs and sourcing and doing a lot of the work that is necessary for us to build all this portfolio. It used to be the case that a new power generation station we were able to complete that in 4 or 5 years. Today, we're looking at 7, 8, or 9 years sometimes. The generation interconnection, the supply chain, location, all of these things that we've been encountering with our current projects are things that we have to take into account, and that's one of the reasons why we need the board's approval now, so that we can start planning now and building the strategy, so that we can have our best shot at having all of these generation available when we need it by the end of the decade. But I will remind the public that this is a long journey. It began in 2019, and in very clearly, we engaged with the public on our pathways to decarbonization process, and we've been going along through the pathways to decarbonization study that eventually led into the issuance of the integrated resource plan we had last year, it has been a journey. And I mentioned how this portfolio comports with the findings of pathways to decarbonization on purpose, because it's not something that we're now starting to think about or talk about. It's something that we've had the opportunity many months ago, I would say almost 2 years ago, to engage with the public and get inputs from the public and run different scenarios based on those inputs. All of that information, all of that feedback we've gotten from the public is part of what you're seeing today on this proposal. I would be disingenuous if I would say that we are at a point where we can take comments and we can modify the portfolio. The team has worked endless hours coming up with a portfolio that meets all of these requirements. It's not an easy task. Some members of the team are here in the room today, and they will agree that it's been a grueling effort. But we have in front of the board, we have put our best portfolio that meets all of those requirements, meets all of the strategic directive or goals that the board has given to us, and I feel very comfortable with that. Not discounting the need for us to have good engagement with the public, but I did want to remind the public about the much longer engagement process that we've had. So those are the only things I wanted to address and make sure that I clarified. Thank you, Chair Williams.
Great, appreciate that. Regarding the engagement process, we mentioned on Tuesday that the slides would be available. Those are posted online, both on the committee meeting page as well as OPPD Community Connect. We have some comments there already. The video from Tuesday has not yet been posted, but I have checked with staff and that is in process. It was an unusually long meeting. The processing time to get the video posted online was a little longer. So if you are interested in the recording of the discussion from the committee meeting on Tuesday, it will be posted online for review. And then again, the methods of feedback from here forward, the primary method that we are encouraging people to use to provide input is on OPPD Community Connect, correct?
That is correct. That's probably the most efficient way for us to gather feedback, although customer owners sometimes call into our call center and share that information. We have a part on our website about contacting our board members. Sometimes we get that information there. We also scan our social media. We're taking comments from everywhere, but the most efficient way of doing that is through OPPD Community Connect. It's a tool that was built specifically for this.
Great. And as transparency for the public, that information is provided to the directors multiple times throughout the public comment period for our review and our background information. So we do get to see every comment that is submitted through every method: social media, OPPD Community Connect, board contact form, and other. So appreciate the work by our staff to receive that information and share it with the board prior to the action that is anticipated for next month. At this time, that is the end of our agenda. And so at 6:12 p.m., we are adjourned.